continuing the story of my brother, Justin. I think I left off when he was a teenager, and I'm moving into what happens after high school. Um, he wasn't exactly a studious young man, which I kind of mentioned in my first video. He was he had just always been very busy, very active, action packed, excitement kind of guy. So college wasn't gonna be something, it wasn't something he considered, it wasn't something he wanted, it wasn't something he'd like. Um, he found himself with some friends basically just hanging out in apartments, in and out of part-time jobs, really going nowhere. He was a very, very handsome young man. You will see some pictures. Very handsome. So he didn't have any, well, his one problem that he talked about a lot, at least to me, is that in all the pictures that he's in with other guys, you know which one is him because he's the shortest one. And so he did have issues, even though he was super handsome. He was very concerned about his height. He always had been, and that continued to be like his weak link in self-confidence, especially with girls, women. But I don't know whose idea it was, but very close friends since high school. And it was only a year or two after high school, one of them had the idea to join the Marines. And so they all did that at the same time, and I think they were all in the same company. I know at least one of his good friends was. Anyway, I think after a couple months, they went off to boot camp, and it was very, very exciting because this is when you could actually go to when people were coming off the plane, like in the little waiting area, you could be there, not like now. They had their, they had the idea, all of them that were coming home on that flight, to wait to be the very last that came out so they could make this entrance. And he came out, and I believe this is when there's a picture of him in his dress blues, and the pride in his face and his smile. It's a really old picture from the 90s, and it's bad quality, but we got him just right. And I believe I took the picture. I mean, he's just beaming, and he's so handsome. And my mom, you can see her standing off to the side, and she's just glowing and smiling. And I cried. I did. It was very moving. And from then on, he traveled a lot. Germany, they had to spend some time on I'm sorry. Sometimes I lose my words and it takes a long time for me to retrieve them from my brain. Um, I know what a carrier, an aircraft carrier. And we have some pictures of him on there. He spent time. Well, he was stationed or went to boot camp, or I'm not really sure, in California. Um, we have a history in our family of Marines. Grandfather, my grandfather, um, joined the Marines the day after Pearl Harbor. He was 17 and his mom had to sign a paper. He was a ranger, he was a sniper. Um, and then my uncle, he was in Vietnam, a Marine. And so my grandparents lived in California and he visited my grandpa. So there was this like grandson, grandfather, Marines. And the picture's so weird because they're dressed identically. It's really strange. White t-shirt, jean shorts. Um, and he, what else? He went to Australia. We have pictures of him and all his Marine buddies. Um, he in that period, there's lots of smiles, youth, innocence. He was happy. He was so happy. It was so perfect for him. It was structured. Every minute of his day was, he was accounted for. And he got to do exciting daredevil things, hanging from a helicopter by rope, kind of stuff like that just was really up his alley. He loved it. And the camaraderie, he just soaked that up. That bond was, he excelled. He he partied a lot. And I mean, they did a lot of drinking, a lot of pictures with a lot of drinking, but that's what they did on their off time. Nobody would be surprised to see Marines off duty at a bar on the beach drinking. And they're in their 20s, so there's nothing suspicious there. His self-confidence skyrocketed, and he even built on, even though he was shorter than the other guys, he excelled. And he really proved that size is nothing. He just had it inside of him, and so he got a lot of respect. And it didn't bother him if they called him shorty or something like that. He knew that they respected him. Not like in high school when his friends felt like taunting somebody and he was there and they knew it would really goad him. So, get under his skin. This was perfect for him. In The first thing we all think of when we think of Justin is the beach. Blue skies, sand, water, blue green water waves, the smell of copper tone, that coconut smell. He always had a tan. Um, he loved the beach. So, anywhere they went that was beach related, like Australia and California, and he'd been to Jamaica later in life, but that wasn't a very happy time. Um, anyway, they went to, at some point, the party ends. They, they were sent to Somalia. Operation Restore Hope, Part 2, or something like that. Basically, they were there to make sure the relief food and items made it to refugees, or anyway the people in need that they were going to, because what would happen is gangs would, with automatic weapons, would stop the caravans and steal the supplies and sell them on the black market. So was their job. He talked about it only when we were alone and he'd been drinking. They were in the desert. And he told me, that movie, if you ever seen a movie or watched a movie called Jarhead, about Marines in the desert, and they're like playing football, he was like, that is not what it was like. Every minute of your day was taken up with something. If you had free time, you were doing a hump or something. He did not like that movie. But the thing was, these gangs would use kids, teach them how to use these weapons, and use kids to stop the caravans, because they felt that the Marines and other soldiers would less likely shoot children. And so there were instances where he was shot at, and there were instances where he shot others. And you don't want to be shot. They're pointing this automatic weapon at you. I mean, that's what happens. And we have a lot of pictures of him while he was in Somalia, and it's not the same person that was in the beach pictures traveling with the boys, and there's still some camaraderie. They're all together, but there's this one that I think really sums what was really happening, sums it up, and that is this picture of just him. There's no smile. He looks tired and sad and almost like mom's little boy wants to go home kind of thing if you look in the eyes. Um, and I think the only way they got through that was that camaraderie, that companionship, sharing the experience, and cutting loose sometimes. Um, in some pictures, they're posing with their weapons and stuff that seems more aggressive, less, very heavy. Definitely not the lighthearted boys. And so he did end up with some PTSD as a result of that. When he and he also ended up with a serious drinking problem, used to self-medicate and cope. When their 4 years were up, we kind of hoped he would sign up for another 4 years, just because it seemed to be the most successful environment for him, but he did not. He, from that point, he had some, his hair was starting to recede early, so he had that on top of being short. So he was very self-deprecating, bald guy, down on himself a lot of the time. He did have, I think he had just one serious girlfriend for a while. But I noticed that from, like, say, mid-20s to mid-30s, my notes get crazy after that. He would, like, constantly create situations that involved drinking. It seemed like he was itchy to get to a certain time of day that it was more acceptable to start drinking. He didn't like to be the only one with a drink. He would badger people into having a beer with him. And always constantly suggesting, let's barbecue tonight. What do you do at a barbecue? You get drunk. Let's go to the, lake, river, beach, whatever. Let's go to the concert. Let's go out for drinks. Let's go to the bars. Let's go hang, just, it was a dual kind of thing. The dual thing was, as I said, the camaraderie was always so important to him. Baseball team, from T-ball, Marines, and now all his friends are getting married, starting families, getting jobs, and the weekends, sometimes they're with their wife and girlfriend, and he was losing his world. And he had one serious girlfriend. She broke up with him, and In all honesty, it probably was drinking. I think he had a drinking problem. I don't think he was an alcoholic, but I think he had a drinking problem, abuse, misuse for a long, very early in life, all the way down to teens. So, and not only being, yes, it is more difficult to find someone if you are a short man um, with a receding hairline and that's not the thing that keeps the women away. If you believe those things make you a bad catch, then it's going to resonate and it's going to seep out of you. And it's that negative, is going to, women are going to pick up on that, not the fact that you're shorter. You know, there are plenty of charismatic, short, bald men. It was his opinion of himself, and he compared his life to his friends too much, and it always paled into comparison. He hated to be alone. It was to be alone was absolute torture for him. He was completely untethered. So out of the Marines, and there's nothing. So that's when I did start to notice that he had like this fixation with drinking, that he may have started to become aware of it as well. And there were times where everybody felt uncomfortable because of his like badgering for someone to have a drink with him. And then let's see, I'm going to depression. I don't know if I know he had PTSD. I know he had social anxiety. He had panic attacks. I witnessed them. There are people who walk around saying, I have panic attacks, and they're saying, I'm like, I've seen panic attacks. I've had some really bad anxiety, but I've never had what I have seen in my brother. He would, and this is before and I think the panic attacks came after the Marines, so I think they were tied to Somalia. He would sweat profusely and shake and couldn't sit still and would get tunnel vision, and he'd cry sometimes, just start sobbing, and it was scary and freaky, and he was embarrassed and ashamed of that. And I don't know if his depression was a psychiatric illness, disorder, depression, or if his depression was a result of poor self-esteem as a man. Yes, men and women are different. And loneliness, feeling left behind, Because those things would make someone feel quite very depressed. And if you discovered something that made you feel better and not have that, you would use it. And that's what happened. And that's where he was when he met the love of his life. If you ask my mother, it's the woman that put him in his grave. So I'm going to stop here because that's going to take a whole chunk of time just on his relationship and what she did to him. Everyone sees it differently. I might have to give her a fake name. But to him, he had met the answer. He was now like his friends. So he did have a time of happiness. So I will tell you all about that in my next installment, about my brother that died from alcoholism.